Greetings everyone, it's the Thrival nurse. I'm so glad you're here. In this video, I'll talk about the importance of staying organized throughout your classes. Everyone is different and may have their own preferences on how they do things, but I'm going to give you 4 really great tips when applied that are guaranteed to help you thrive through nursing school. But before we get into it, make sure to like, subscribe, comment, and turn on your post notifications. This way, you'll get notified every time I upload new content. Thank you so much for your support. Now, let's get started. Organization is key. Staying organized saves you lots of time in the long run, relieves you of stress, and overall just makes things a whole lot easier. The best time to get organized is before your classes start. You don't want to wait until 2 or 3 weeks in because you might already be scrambling just to keep up. So how do you get organized? I'm really glad you asked. Tip number 1, make sure you have the right tools. Tools are meant to help you. So what kind of tools am I talking about? I'll give you some examples. So your number 1 tool is going to be your syllabus. If you want to be successful in nursing school, then make your syllabus your best friend. Your syllabus will tell you everything you need to know and expect in your class. Think of it like a reader's manual to success. So make sure that for each class, you print out your syllabus and keep it handy. Some students only utilize the electronic version of the syllabus, which is fine. However, I would highly encourage you to print it out and even use page protectors and place it into a binder for your class. A syllabus isn't just for the first day of class. You'll want to be looking through it weekly. Other tools you'll need are your textbooks and your required clinical equipment. I suggest not waiting until the last minute to order your textbooks. If you don't have them by the first day of class, you're going to feel behind. So getting your textbooks as soon as possible is important. The same thing goes for your clinical equipment. Come to class prepared. Don't get marked down for things you could have easily prepared for. Some other helpful tools to gather would be organizational tools like binders, folders, pens, pencils, highlighters, note cards, sticky notes, calendars, planners, notebooks, anything that you find useful to keep yourself organized. Tip number 2 to staying organized is to look ahead. Okay, so hear me out on this one because there is a perfect middle ground that I want you to stay in. You don't want to be so focused on looking ahead that you get overwhelmed and stressed out. However, you don't want to only be looking at what's due tomorrow. Here's what I suggest. Once you get your syllabus, which I told you is going to be your new best friend, go through your class timeline and make sure you note major events. Major events are things like quizzes, tests, midterms, finals, large projects. Mark these due dates on your calendar so that nothing sneaks up on you. Depending on the learning platform that you're using, there might be a calendar function or an assignment tab that's used by your professor, and that will help remind you of these deadlines. These are great tools to use as well. And although I do suggest that you do so, I also suggest that you don't just rely on those electronic versions as a substitute for actually writing down these key deadlines in your planner or your calendar. There's just something that's so magical that happens when you write things down. You're taking ownership of your assignments and your tasks when you write them down. So we took our syllabus and we mapped out our term or our semester. So we looked at the overall big picture. Then what I suggest you do is take things week by week. If you keep looking at the entire semester, that big picture every day, you'll get overwhelmed. This is what I meant by we need a nice middle ground. So designate a specific day of each week. Typically Sundays work for most people, but you can tailor this to your own schedule. Sit down, take a look at the week ahead, and then make a to-do list for each class and all of the assignments and tasks that you have to do. Then take a look at your own personal schedule and block out specific times to work on those tasks and assignments. For example, if you know that you have an assignment due on a Thursday, but you also know that you work all day on Wednesday and that you'll be mentally drained, then schedule yourself time to work on that assignment maybe on a Monday or a Tuesday. Once you've scheduled everything out for the week, then you can take things day by day so that each day you know what you're focusing on and you can spend your energy and attention on those things rather than worrying about when things are due and what's due. Major assignments and projects may take a few weeks to work on, so keep pacing yourself throughout each week. All right, tip number 3 is proper naming and filing. So from the get-go, you should have a designated space in your computer for each class. I suggest creating a folder on your computer titled for whichever semester that you're going into. For example, spring 2025. Then, inside that folder, create a folder for each class that you're taking and name them accordingly. Then, inside each class folder, you should have a copy of your syllabus and folders for each type of document. For example, you could have a folder titled Assignments, or Class Notes, or Study Guides. Then every time that you save a document, make sure to title it correctly and put it in the right folder immediately. This is so key, so important. A lot of times students wait and let things get backed up instead of doing it immediately, but this is a true time saver. So for example, if you have a document that you name Cardiovascular Study Guide, you'd file that under your study guide folder for that class. A bit of warning for you would not be to let your computer title documents for you, like Untitled 7, because you'll have trouble finding these documents later. Give your documents names that will be helpful for you, and remember to save them and organize them quickly so that the next time you need the file, it can be easily found. For the notes that you take, you can title them with the lesson that you went over and even add a date. The important thing to do is to name them so that they make sense to you, that they're easy to find in the future. So like when you're studying for a big final exam, you can go back and you can pull up certain topics quickly and easily. I suggest naming things as you go. I mentioned this before, don't let things pile up because the chances are you won't get to it later, even if you tell yourself you will. Spending an extra minute or two doing this along the way will potentially save you hours down the road, not to mention all the stress. So even if these steps take a bit of additional effort, it will be well worth the time to stay organized and have your stress levels lowered overall. The consequences of submitting the wrong assignment can cost you valuable points or could even lead to an uncomfortable conversation with your professor. Submitting the wrong file is really easy to do if your documents aren't properly named. So here's a pro tip for you. Use a different file name for versions of files that you're not ready to submit. Some students like naming these files rough draft and maybe the name of the assignment. Or if you're editing the assignment multiple times, you could add the date to it each time you edit it. For the final version, you could simply add the word final and the name of the assignment. Google Documents are also helpful for classwork as you are not having to continuously save the document and rename the versions. And you can simply click on version history if you want to go back and see previous versions. And lastly, tip number 4 is to be clutter-free. Always keep your workspace clean and free of clutter. If you notice that things start to pile up, take care of it sooner than later. Your future self will thank you. It is always so much easier and a lot less time consuming when you clean a few minutes a day, every day, than deep cleaning for hours and hours after everything gets too messy. Another benefit of keeping your workspace clean is that your brain will feel less cluttered as well. This has actually been proven by research. Your brain will function better in a clean space. It has even been said that the cleanliness of your bedroom is representative of what's going on inside of you. So if you want to be less stressed and less anxious throughout nursing school, prioritize keeping your workspace clean. And that's 4 tips to help keep you organized. Let me know what your organizational habits are down in the comments below. Tell me what works for you and what doesn't. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. And remember, keep on thriving.